Right, 10 seconds to promote Paddy Power Games. Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games. Advertising. It's easy when you know how. Paddy Power. Enough of the nonsense. 18 plus, BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome to this Cheltenham AntePostcast. I'm Maddie Plell. Joining the studio, he's back from the dead, Nick Watts and Anthony Hythe as well. He is back. And of course Darren Hughes from Paddy Power as well. This week we're covering the Coral Cup and the Martin Pipe. Two races, where there's bound to be a little bit of crossover, but we're going to delve into them nevertheless. Plenty to talk about. First off, Darren, just reel off the betting. We'll go for the Coral Cup first off.
So Uredale for Willie Mullins and Luke McMahon is our 6-1 favourite. We then have Dallas to Picton's in. He's 6-1, sorry, yeah. Dallas to Picton is 8-1. Off You Go is 9-1. The Storyteller is 10s. Getaway Trump and Pim are 12s. Brewing Up a Storm is 14s. Brio Conti's 14s. Eclair de Buffo is 14s. Eric LaRouge is 14s. Rhinestone is 14s. Vision to Flow is 14s. And Whiskey Sour is 14s as well. And it's 16s bar. Yeah,
obviously plenty below that point that we can talk about as well. Anthony, I'll go to you first. Our stats man, you've got plenty for this.
I have indeed. So some trends and some things that I've spotted over the last few weeks. From the Coral Cup, 7 of the last 10 winners had 11 stone plus on their back when winning this race. The last 3, 11 stone 2, 11 stone 4, 11 stone 3. 8 of the last 10 have fewer than 10 runs over hurdles. 9 of the last 10 had won only over hurdles at most 3 times. And interestingly for Uredale, and not good for Uredale, this is an absolute graveyard for favourites. Only one outright favourite has won this since 1993 when the race was created, and that was Xenophon in 2003. There's been one joint favourite back in 1993, the Olympian, that was the winner of this race as well. So it's really a horrible race for favourites. Only 2 other outright favourites and one joint favourite have actually finished in the top 3 in 25 years. And from the last 10 years, the 30 horses that have finished in the top 3, 16 were between 12-1 and 16-1. So they were all sort of quite well fancied. But the favourites are just shockers in this. Only 5 horses under 10-1 have been in the top 3 in the last 10 years. So it's actually really the well-fancied horses don't. The ones that are punted on the day don't get much success. 48 horses, age 5, have run in this race in the last 10 years. And 3 winners have come out of this: Spirit River, Carlito Briganti, and Petit Soir. To a £1 stake, you'll be down £3. Now, that's pretty average. You look at that and you don't really mean much from it. But 15 of those 48 horses have finished in the top 5 in this race. And looking at each way chances and paying 5 places with paddies, you've got some really quite interesting stuff here. So if you backed every 5-year-old in the last 10 years, £1 each way, you'll be up £21. If you couple that with the 12-1 to 16-1 winners trend stat, and if you backed only the 5-year-olds within those prices, you'd actually be up £31.
Okay.
It's quite interesting.
So it is sort of a muddling race, but there are sort of stats and things that you can do to help swing the balance in your favour, so to speak, it seems.
Yeah.
Statistics...
You don't need me after all that. That was comprehensive, wasn't it?
We need you, Watson, we need you.
Statistics, some people, they don't rely on them at all. Some people, they read into them a little bit, and others, they go by the book with them. What's your approach to a race like this?
Well, I know we're talking about it a week before, but, it's difficult, and it gets worse every year because the options horses have. Uredale, for example,
we'll mention him when we talk about the Martin Pipe.
Just ignoring the stats for a moment, just concentrating on him in himself. He's entered in 3 races, and he's not guaranteed to get into any of them. And he's in the county hurdle as well on the Martin Pipe, where they want to run him. I'm not sure. It probably would be this race. And I'm sure, and Darren will probably allude to this as well, the handicap hurdle that was won by Off You Go at the Leopardstown Dublin Racing Festival could be very informative for this. Uredale ran really well in that last time, was running on 5th, I think. And big field handicap's obviously no issue for him. He was a really good second in the Cesarewitch going back to last autumn, obviously in a massive field. And, you know, I'm kind of more interested in obviously stats play a part, and I do have a look at stats, but I'm more interested in the kind of horses, I think, who will flourish in these big fields. Fast run race, plenty of hurdy-burdy. Some horses like it, some don't. Uradel on past performances is one of those that does, so he would be interesting if he got into the race, but it's a big if. I think he's number 80 at the moment, so it does need quite a few to come out. Yeah,
exactly. That's a really valid point. Darren, we've spoken about Uradel. He was 5th in the Ladbrokes Hurdle, won by Off You Go, who's also engaged for this race, and also Eclair de Beaufort was 4th, so plenty of runners in that race are going to be talked about here.
Yeah, I think that's a key trial for a number of the handicaps at Cheltenham, to be honest with you. Even like my old pal Wonderlace was well down the field, had a lovely quiet run to open the pipes for the county hurdle, but that's neither here nor there. On Uradel, I'd say he's definitely tight to get in here. I'd say he's a 3-to-1 shot to get into the race, to be honest with you, and I probably wouldn't even back it at that. Martin Pipe is most likely where he'd end up, if I had to guess. I suppose we'll talk about him anyway, and what his chances might be is that his flat rating alone would give you massive hope and make him of huge interest, and if he can win around Galway with Aubrey McMahon on his back, he must be a decent horse as well. Frank actually reckons this could end up going off about 5-2 whatever handicap it shows up in, which is a big statement. As I said, I'd say most likely we'll touch on him more in the Martin Pipe because he is more likely to get in there. Then if you would go on to Eclair de Beaufort,
he's a horse I really like, and I think he's been absolutely crying out for a step up in trip, hasn't he?
I'd agree with you completely. I think they think a lot of him down in Gordon's as well. Because I could be wrong now, but I think they've entered him in pretty much every Grade 1 that's been going. He seems to me to be one of these slow burners. I'd say he's going to improve with age. He's still only 5, and you won't see the best of him till he's 7 or 8. He's definitely not one for early doors. So I'd say 2.5 mile handicap around Cheltenham just could be his bag at the moment, and with more to come down the line when he gets chasing.
Yeah, indeed. Another one towards the head of the market is Dallas de Picton. Got to talk about him. A really likeable horse who won the William Fry Handicap Hurdle at that Dublin Racing Festival when we last saw him. Anthony, what do you make of Dallas de Picton? He's likeable, isn't he?
He is, but I think he just wants 3 miles. I mean, he won the Handicap Hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival, and I don't think 2.5 is going to suit him personally. I think he's more of a stayer over time. He's probably a bit too short for my liking in this. I really like Eclair de Beaufort. If you look at Uradel, I mean, there's £1 different now compared to what they were running at in. They're £1 in weight in the Coral Cup versus I think it was £3 or £4 in the Dublin Racing Festival, and he was staying on right at the end. I'd much rather fancy him than Dallas de Picton, if I'm honest in that.
Okay, any thoughts on Dallas de Picton?
Well, I think, reading the racing post today, I think Gordon Elliott wants to run him in the Martin Pipe, so I think that's probably his most likely destination. He's probably quite versatile. I wouldn't be so down on him in regard to the trip because he's put in a good performance over.
You need to stay to win these races, don't you?
Yeah, and he must have a bit of toe. He was second to City Island earlier in the season over 2 miles, and has won over 2.5 as well this season. And then obviously he looked as though he improved for 3 last time. But it's never a bad thing to have in your armoury to stay further than the distance you're running over at Cheltenham, because it means you're going to be finishing the race strongly. So I wouldn't rule him out, but out of this race, I would say from reading what Gordon Elliott said, he's probably another one more likely to go for the Martin Pipe as well.
Okie doke. What about Off You Go, Darren? Thoughts on him? He's improved so much. He's obviously won that Ladbrokes Hurdle last time.
I think that was his Cheltenham, to be honest with you. I have a funny feeling that's his level. I think he was trained to the second for it, and the money on the day would suggest that as well. I mean, no matter what we added up, you'd have to be extremely disappointed that, as much as we all do love Tiger Roll, that he couldn't beat a 4 mile chaser over 2.5 miles over hurdle. That's not that. What price would Tiger Roll be for a race like this at Cheltenham? As much and all as we all love him, he wouldn't. This isn't up his street at all. He was able to easily beat Off You Go. Given connections and given the colours he's going to be in, you couldn't discount him completely.
This will be the race, if any, for him, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be, yeah. It definitely would be. For me, he's too short. It wouldn't be for me after the last day now.
Okay, and what about the Storyteller, rated 160 over fences, 142 over hurdles? That's going to appeal to a lot of people, isn't it?
156.
Yeah, he got it. Yeah, I was just going to stay.
It was an absolute nonsense that they bumped him up by £14. But I was talking to Watsy about this in the office the other day. Before the handicap weights come out, he was 142. he's clearly better than that.
Yeah.
But actually bumping up 14.
Sorry, I must have read that wrong. That's
No, it was
No.
the original. It was the original mark, but they
Okay.
bumped him up £14 last week, and it was just a nonsense. I mean,
Yeah.
It's the most outrageous piece of handicapping I have ever seen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, I remember now. Gordon Elliott was absolutely fuming about this.
I can completely understand why. I mean, he hasn't seen a hurdle for 14, 15 months. And when he did, he got beat by a 130 rated hurdler. It's just like there's no logic behind bumping up £14 when, if he'd gone up to, say, 150, 155 based on his chase form, you go, okay, well, he's got a chance. But you have no idea if this is a 156, 160 rated hurdler. It's a nonsense.
You see,
really.
the thing is, lads, the way they handicap is different. In the UK, as far as I'm aware, and I'm open to correction here, they take your chase form into account when giving you a hurdles mark, whereas in Ireland they are completely separate. Like Dennis Hogan has a grade 3 mare there over fences. You can't call her that. She's rated like 130 odd, and she only rated 99 over hurdles.
Yeah.
And she's been running in handicaps and getting smashed actually off 99 or whatever. She's 100.
Yeah.
But, they don't necessarily correlate all the time. And I don't know what way your lad has taken a view on this, but giving him 156 or 158 or whatever it is over hurdles is nothing short of scandalous. I won't sit here and go on about it, but it's absolutely horrific.
You're preaching to the converted there.
Yeah.
Well, it's he's a talented horse, and it was worth mention. So even if we're saying he is been particularly hard done by, it's always worth talking about him. Getaway Trump, he didn't exactly enhance his claims at the weekend, did he, Anthony? Getaway Trump, you fancy?
Yeah, I
a
don't
race
think
like
he's not
this?
going to turn up, is he? After that performance, he wasn't great. He didn't really look like himself, and he looked a really promising horse during the season. But I'd be amazed if he turns up now.
Yeah, plenty of these Irish representatives in here. Let's talk about Rhinestone, second to Commander of Fleet last time. That looks really good form. That was in a Grade 1. Reverting back to handicap company, you'd have to be of interest, Watsy?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you'd have to be a massive interest. I thought that was a good run last time behind Commander of Fleet.
Step back a few furlongs, I think will help him a furlong.
Yeah, I don't see that being a major issue. He's obviously a very good bumper horse last season. This kind of trip would probably suit him fine. So, we're talking about plenty of horses. We're getting through plenty of horses here, aren't we? He's one that's it's about your price as well, isn't he? I think he's about 14 to 1 in the market.
Yeah, he's pretty big price.
Yeah, and obviously comes in really good form. So yeah, you'd give him a chance. He's I've got another one who's top of my radar at the moment, so we'll come to in a minute. But yeah, no, he's one you'd definitely give a chance to.
Fab. Some others to mention that are towards the top of the list. We've got Brio Conti, won at Ascot last time. Big time Dance the Lanzarote, winner for Jenny Candlish. Ballymoy's in there, Early Doors, Scarpetta, so many. Darren, I'm going to throw over to you next and open up the floor a little bit. Who do you want to mention?
Okay, I have a few here, so I'll just briefly mention Rhinestone. I'd say he's long odds on to go to the Albert Bartlett. Just that's the vibes I'm getting here.
Would he not have a better chance in a race like this?
They've got Early Doors in here. Well, they've got 2 or 3 in here that might be running in this, but they chucked Tower Bridge into the 2 mile 6 at Dublin Racing Festival last season, and then sent him to the Albert Bartlett as well. So I'm
Okay.
sort of with Darren there, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple here, a couple I think do have chances and a couple I think don't. So Pim is one that's, what is he, 12 to 1 there. Like, I don't know, I think people are mixing him up with LTR every time he gets priced up, because he seems to go off ridiculously short for what he's achieved. I'd say he's very limited, and he's suffering from the fact of the colours that he's in, do you know, that kind of a way. I feel a little bit bad for him, and I think he's been aimed at the EBF final at Sandown at the end of the year, so not necessarily going to show up here. Brio Conti, big fan of him now. Big fan of him. I think he should be a good bit shorter than Eric LaRouge on a line through Ballyandy. And the impression I got from his latest run there when he won at a big price is that they weren't expecting it, and he's going to improve a lot from that.
Yeah, just to jump in, I think Harry Derham, I spoke to him about it the other day, and I think you're right, they were pretty surprised by it, but the one thing I would say is maybe he might have just gone up that £1 or £2 too much now.
Potentially, yeah, but I honestly think that we could potentially have an open class graded horse here in a handicap.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm pulling that out of my arse now, to be honest with you. I just think 146 is very, very achievable, especially if there's more improvement to come from him. And I know he was very highly thought of earlier on in his career. A couple others then that are short enough relatively in the betting. Eric LaRouge got a nice form boost at the weekend with Who's My Jockey going in.
Yeah.
He reminds me a little bit of that horse To Be Fair of Deborah Hamers from last year or the year before. Do you remember he won like 7 on the bounce? I just think he's not well handicapped now at this stage, but he's going to go there with a chance, and the string of ones beside his name is going to leave him short enough as well. And then after that, there's one more I'd like to mention is Mr. Adjudicator. So I was at a preview with Ruby the other night and had a quick chat with him, and he's going to go wherever he has the lowest weight, because nothing to do with how well handicapped I think he is, because he's a physically small horse. and Willie doesn't want him carrying over 11 stone in a race.
Okay, that's
So
really interesting.
wherever they think he's going to get the lowest weight, the distance isn't even that important, they said.
Okay, that's really interesting. What's any others you want to mention at bigger prices?
Yeah, I think if Brewing Up a Storm went, he'd be interesting. I'm not sure he will. I don't know which way Ollie Murphy's leading at the moment, possibly towards the Ballymore, but obviously it looked like he was going to win last time until he fell at the last. I think he'd be interesting. But the one who's really caught my eye is a Colin Tizard horse, and it's not Vision de Flow, it's another one he's got called Highest Sun. He had good form in France before he came over, and he started him off in novice hurdles behind the likes of Did They Leave You Out Too and Thomas Darby, those kind of horses. Then he ran in that really good handicap one by Al Dancer at Cheltenham. Yeah. He finished 4th in that, which was quite a good run. And I've done a bit of analysis on him this season in a couple of his runs at Wincanton 2 starts ago. He's a big horse, and he's a little bit fresh, and he just needs to settle down a little bit. But at Chepstow last time, he was really, really impressive in the 2 mile handicap. He won by 3.5 lengths on the bridle, did it really, really nicely. And I just think, a race like this, with a big field where he can get some cover, will help settle him down a little bit. And he'll be trying a longer trip here than he's been running over. But like I said, he hosed up in France on very soft ground over 2 miles 1. So I'll be surprised if he didn't get a longer trip as long as he does. You can restrain him early on. And I think this is a really, really promising young horse. And I'd be very interested if Colin Tizard sent him for the race. And I don't think he's got any other entries at Cheltenham, which is unusual. A lot of these do. So if Highest Sun, I think he's number 65 at the moment. But if he could creep in at the bottom, I'd be really, really keen on his chances.
Okay, very interesting. Anthony?
I like him. I think he's quite a good horse, and I think he's going to be an improver in the time. He was very green early doors in the season, and he cost a fair few quid. I think it was 125 grand that they paid for him. I'd say he's probably going to be a graded talent at some stage in the future. It might be this is a bit too much for him too soon, but I think he's got some serious talent there.
Okay. Let's clarify. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, do you want me to just run through a few?
Go for it, and then we'll clarify our bets.
Okay. I've got. To be fair, I could go through a list here. Cracking Smart off a mark of 150. Actually, go back to Mr. Adjudicator because Darren mentioned him a second ago. Mark of 149 would put him around about 11 stone 2, 3, something like that, based on history. You go through the last few winners. I think we're talking Diamond King was 149. He was 11 stone 3. So, that might be a nice little weight for him, and he's a useful horse. So I quite like him at a decent price. He's in the county, obviously, but 149. See what else goes in the county. You got Cracking Smart off 150 for Gordon Elliott. He was really highly thought of as a novice. He beat Shady Operator at Punchestown, and in behind you had Silver Concord, who then went on to win multiple races. Off You Go, it's gone on to be 156, and Darren Ross, who's really likeable for the Albert Bartlett. Yeah. Mark of 150 versus Off You Go at 156. So, I mean, that's eye-catching in itself. He beats horses Robin de Foray and Fabulous Saga at Cork, and they're rated 146, 145. Came second to Next Destination in Group Grade 2 and Grade 1s, and beat Duke de Genève in the Grade 1. He had a spin round over Christmas behind Apple's Jade, and I'd say he come third to Tiger Roll in that race that Tiger Roll won. I think he's just set up for this. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs a big race. He's 16 to 1 or around about that sort of price. Early Doors is one that I really, really fancy for this. He's probably going to be my main bet of this race. He's off a mark of 145. He ran decent races against Delta Work, Duke de Tai, Merida V in Grade 3 company. Came second at Mclaughlin in Royal Bond. He came third in the Martin Pipe last year behind Discorama and Blow by Blow. Fifth to Apple's Jade in the Hatton's Grace, and second behind Apple's Jade last time out. And that's that race itself is just, if you take that as raw form, this horse has got a stone in hand, well, probably £10 in hand. He beat home that day. He beat home Bapome, who's rated 150 odd over hurdles. Jeski's obviously been bumped up. He ran a cracker in the race at Leopardstown and Dublin Racing Festival. And he came in front of Cracking Smart that day. He's only running 2 handicaps in his career, in the Martin Pipe and then at Punchestown, and he went off 9 to 1 and 6 to 1, and he's around about 14 to 1 in this, and I can see him being punted. I really, really fancy this off 145. I think he's got £10 in hand based on Bapome and the like. Bapome then run second to Presenting Percy. Scarpetta is interesting in this as well. I've got God knows how many here. Scarpetta off 151 came fourth to Sam Crone at Ballymore. Only had 2 runs in his career before that race. He beat Cartwright by 17 lengths, and Cartwright's fancied for the Martin Pipe.
Yeah.
Bolted up over 3 miles at Clonmel, third behind Backerson, over Christmas, sent off 13 to 8 fav in that. The only issue would be he's been a bit sketchy over hurdles in the past, and he's 20 to 1. But if he puts in a decent round of jumping, and he's probably going to have a chance in this as well. I could go on if you like. Do you want another one?
Maybe if you just talk about the names, go through a few of the names.
Yeah, Whiskey Sour off 144. Ran a cracker, obviously won a cracker in a county last year off 141. I think he probably needs a step up in trips. Apple Shakira is, God knows what it could be. Like she looked like a superstar last year. You thought she could be a champion hurdle horse, and she's off a mark of 140 here. She was punted, and she was well fancied on a seasonal debut at Sandown, and when she was pulled up, and she's 25 to 1. I mean, like, she was beating mid 130 horses last year by a mile. You know, she beat Nubi Negra at Cheltenham by like half the track. And Nubi Negra then ran a cracker in the Fred Winter. I mean, when she comes back to form, when she's fit and healthy, she wins a race off 140. There is no chance this is a 140 horse based on last year's form.
Sorry.
There you go. Sorry, I could take up all day for that.
Let's get your bets then. 1 winner and 1 other bet. I'll go to you first, Darren.
So my main bet in this is Brio Conti. As I said, think he could potentially turn out to be a good bit classier than a handicapper. If I was forced to have a second bet in the race, I don't know, maybe Eclair de Buffo. Yeah, I think again another one that he probably is better than his mark. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Eclair de Buffo. Watsy?
Yeah, I think Highest Sun would be my main bet if he went for the race. And just a nod to another one, if it did run the old Warrior Wicklow Brave, I think he's still got a bit of talent in the locker and didn't run badly at all behind Espoir Dallin last time out. Probably needs a bit of a longer trip these days. Finished quite well last time, not up to champion hurdle class anymore, but he's obviously won a big Cheltenham Festival handicap in the past, and this kind of race might just suit the old boy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him run well.
Yeah, I could see that happening. And Anthony, from your plethora of horses.
Well, the early doors are going to have to back, and I'll probably back Scarpetta rather than Cracking Smart based on runs. But yeah, there you go.
Fabulous. We'll have a look at the Martin Pipe just after this break.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log into your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to this Antepostcast. The Martin Pipe is our next port of call, won last year by Blow by Blow. Lots of crossover, as we previously mentioned, with Uredale and Dallas to pick on the joint favourites, I believe, Darren.
Yeah, so actually, as you said, a lot of crossover there. We've the same two at the top of the market as we had in the Carl Cup. So Dallas to pick on and Uredale are 5 to 1 joint favourites. Honeysuckle is 8 to 1. Eclair de Buffo is 14s. Sonoria is 14s. Style de Garde is 14s. Thomas Darby is 14s. Apple Shakira is 16s, Burbank is 16s, Burrows Edge is 16s, Canardier for Dermot Mclaughlin is 16s, Cap York, Capitan, Cartwright, Deafy Blue, they're all 16s. There's the list length of your arm here. We can touch on them as we go along.
Yeah, we will do indeed. A few of these obviously got alternative options. Honeysuckle probably likely to go for the mares, Vision to Earn horses like that, the Supreme, Thomas Darby, another one that goes into that category perhaps. Anthony, stats first off.
Yeah, I mean, there's only been 10 runnings of this race, so it's you take trends. You like to have a bit of a bigger sample size than this, but it's still quite some quite interesting things in here. So the first from the first 6 winners, 5 of them had claimers on, and none of the last 4 did, which suggests there's actually better horses in this race that are well handicapped rather than relying on taking weight off. Only 2 horses under 10 to 1 have won this, but 7 between 11 to 1 and 20 to 1. Only Sir de Champs as one as the favourite. Waterfront and Big Fran were placed in this as favourites. Again, it's not a great record for favourites by the looks of things. Blow by Blow was the first 7-year-old to win it, with 3 horses aged 5 and 6 horses aged 6. Only At a Glance had won more than twice over hurdles before winning this. All the last 5 winners had experience in graded races and over hurdles. 4 of the last 5 had won over 2 mile 4 plus. And just from a personal perspective, you look through the list of the winners and Sur de Champs and the like, and they look like they're 3 mile chasers, Champagne Classic and horses like that.
I was going to mention this. I mean, good horses win this race. Cheltenham, even he's very classy.
And you had Noble Endeavour behind him that day as well. There's some really good staying horses here. And you look at the breeding of the horses that have won over the last in the 10 races, and you've had 2 side by Old Vic, 2 by Robin Deschamps, 1 by Polygloat, Stowaway, Beneficial, They go on to be wanting 3 miles and fences in time. So, I'd say stamina is actually quite key in this.
Yeah, and perhaps if we're looking at a race where we want to find a potential superstar for the future, this one could provide it. Watts, I'll go to you first. Who's one of your fancies? We mentioned already some of the others for the Coral Cup. Who?
I think Sonoria is interesting if she goes. Obviously, same connections as Honeysuckle, but I think Honeysuckle will go for the mares race. They might well split them up. She won over 2.5 at Down Royal at Christmas, quite impressively, and then won a listed hurdle at Punchestown last time, beat a horse called Chosen Mate of Gordon Elliott's, who's since gone on and won a Grade 2, so I think that form is really solid. And I think Henry de Bromhead might be leaning towards sending her here. I think she's very interesting. And another one of Gordon Elliott's, it's a very simplistic thing to say, but this is a race that Gordon Elliott loves to win because Martin Pipe was his kind of mentor when he was young, and he used to ride for him. So he always chucks a lot of bullets at it, and very good bullets as well. So whatever he runs, obviously, is of major interest. But one of his kind of less heralded entries, Cartwright, I thought was quite interesting because he had quite a good campaign last season in novice hurdles. He won a listed race. He was 5th behind Draconian in a Grade 1 at Punchestown. Not disgraced at all, actually has Sharjah behind him that day, although obviously probably disappointed that day. Hasn't really happened for him this season, hence why he's ending up here really. But I thought there was a bit more to take from his run in the race that we talked about before, behind Off You Go. He finished 12th, which on the face of it you think, well, so what? But he was in a detached last turning in and he was going nowhere, but he passed horse after horse on the run in and he actually finished quite strongly. I think he's another one that's crying out for a bit further. I think 2 miles isn't far enough for him. He's one of these Sir Mark Prescott horses from the flat who probably stays very well. And Gordon has mentioned him a couple of times in dispatches about him going for this race, and I think the 2.5 would suit him very nicely. So Cartwright would be interesting for me, and Sonoria from Henry de Bromhead's team.
Fabulous. I see that Did They Leave You Out Two's on this list, and you're abandoning him finally.
Yeah. He disappointed me at Ascot last time. I mean, even though Nick Gifford says he probably wants a longer trip and all that kind of stuff these days, I thought he might run a similar-ish kind of race to Getaway Trump, who was another in that race who really wants the longer trip, but he stayed on quite well to, I think, finish 4th in that race.
Funny race in a way, wasn't it, that Betfair?
It was a funny race, but, I just wanted to see more from him, really. I'm sure he might bounce back in time, and, he does want a longer trip, but, reluctantly, he is on the swerve list for now.
Yeah, Darren, I'm getting a bit worried because I know me and you agree about one of the horses in here, but what's the inside line on who do we think is going to go towards the top of the market?
Well, Cartwright definitely goes, and I can tell you for a fact, Gordon put him up as his charity bet at a preview night there last week. Don't ask me which one because he's on the gravy train of preview nights at the moment, but he was asked for a charity bet and he gave Cartwright for this race. I'd agree. His last 2 runs were quite promising, I think. Galway Hurdle was a no-show, which is fine. Down Patrick, then he only ran Midland, but when he came back off a break, he ran well at Navan, and then his last run, as Nick alluded to there, very eye-catching, wasn't beaten all that far, and he should get in here. He's 47 on the list. The one I'm really sweet on here is the one that you like as well, Maddie, Finon Bawn. Now he is entered in the Grade 1 novices as well, but I'd love to see him go here. His mark looks very, very achievable. He's very unexposed, and more to the point, I think Beakstown is absolutely class, and he wasn't beaten far by him.
Mm-hmm. He was sort of the first one beaten there, a bit green, and then he just looks a stayer, doesn't he? Exactly,
yeah. And this is a conditionals race. They're going to go off like the clappers here. Do you know what I mean? Like they always go off hard, which will suit them down to the ground. I think
he's running at Fontbonne on Wednesday, isn't he? So
was he in it? Is he in on Wednesday?
Well, they haven't declared him as yet, but they've entered him on the race in a race on Wednesday. So maybe he's
right. You'd obviously hope he doesn't show up there if they intend to run him at Cheltenham, because that's pretty much a no-go. So That's after taking a bit of the wind out of my sails there. But
Sorry, mate, sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. The only other thing is, I suppose Ollie would have access to some of the better conditionals, like Fergus Gregory or a few of them lads who are quite good. And I think this race is kind of like the Kim Muir and the 4 miler. I think who you get on is very important. What jockey you have, because there is a vast bit of difference between certain jockeys, I would say.
Who would be your number one, sort of looking at a race like this? Or towards the top of your list then, who would catch your eye if they were jocked up?
I like Lorcan Murta and I like Fergus Gregory. I think they're quite good. Rex Dingle, he qualifies, doesn't he?
I'm not too sure, but he's
Rex
definitely
Dingle
been
is
in form,
class.
yeah.
I think he is. When he started out, I kind of looked at him, and his name is obviously a little bit unusual, and I wasn't his biggest fan after his first couple of rides, but he's given some peaches this year now. Not that I wasn't involved in any of them cash wise, so completely objective, but I think he's class. I think we're going to hear a lot about him in the next few years. They'd be the 3, I suppose, if you're asking me to pick out names.
Okay, fab. Anthony?
I'm going to whiz through 2 or 3 here, and I've got one that I really like. It's actually a Gordon Elliott horse.
Brilliant.
Start off with Defi Blur for Gordon Elliott. It's a mark of 139. He lost to Brace Yourself at Down Royal, and he didn't really jump very well. He's won at Navan since and come 3rd to Easy Game in a Grade 2 and came 2nd to Darren Ross over 3 miles. So he wants a trip, and he looks like a real chaser. He was well beaten at the Dublin Racing Festival behind Commander of Fleet, but it really wasn't, they didn't give him a hard run. He beat Cap York in the Darren Ross race, and I'd say Cap York's a good horse. I really like that a lot. So there's a couple of form lines in there I quite like, and at 16 to 1, I'd be quite interested in at 139. Whizzing through 2 or 3 others. Any time will do for Dan Skelton off 135. The lowest mark to get in the last 3 years was 135, so he hopefully squeaks in. He won 2 races in October and November at the start of the season, and then come 5th of 8 at Huntingdon last time out a few weeks ago. The 2nd and 3rd from Bangor ended up winning since. The 2nd from Utoxeter ended up winning since, and he was going to chuck him into a Supreme trial early in the season, and they ducked out of it. And he's 20 to 1, so if he squeaks in, I'll be interested in that. Canardier is fascinating. 2nd season novice for Dermot Mclaughlin. Won at Cheltenham over 2.5 in October on good ground. I'd say he's probably talented. He's been stuck away for a long time. The only issue I'd have is that he's had no runs in between quite a long time. Cool won a Grade 2 at Cheltenham before Christmas ahead of Pim. If Pim's going to be a 14 to 1, 16 to 1 shot in some of the big races, big handicaps, then he'd have a chance in this. Finn Unborn is interesting, but I'd say Thomas Darby if he runs in this, but he's probably going to go for a Supreme.
Yeah, I think that's the way he's going to go, isn't
140. That's a bit of a nonsense mark in my view if he beats Alexia Donuts.
Yeah, exactly. Time to clarify your best bets then, Darren.
Yeah, so the 2 I like here are obviously Finn Unborn, who probably isn't going, according to Anthony, which is just fucking brilliant.
Hey.
We are non-runner, no bet though. And then the other 2 I suppose I like are Cartwright and Cap York, who I suppose probably could have done without winning the last day, Cap York, to be honest, in terms of the context of this race, but they'd be the 3 I'd like for the price of 1.
Fab, Watsy?
Yeah, I'd go with Cartwright as well, but I'd add Sinoria as well.
Yeah, very interesting, and Anthony.
And Defi Blur, and Anytime will do if he squeaks in.
Fantastic. Now, before I leave you, we've got to give a plug to the Cheltenham Festival guide. This year's guide full of good stuff. Race by race verdicts. Paul Keeley's in there. There's a Q&A in there. Everything you need for a profitable Cheltenham Festival. Darren, you've got your hands on one. You're a big fan of it.
Yeah, kindly the guy sent me out one from your place last week and spent all weekend swatting up, and have to say I am thoroughly impressed.
Okay, brilliant. Well, that should do us for today's show. Thanks for joining us, and have a profitable time in the meantime.
Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, BeGambleAware.org.